going on, Lullet here. Recently I stumbled upon a set of articles with some top FAQs towards folks that are new to everything about credit cards. I took a subset of these questions and compiled them into this video format here today to hopefully provide some value to everyone that's new to everything credit cards, or act as a refresher if you already know what's going on. The following isn't financial advice, but basically the answers provided to these questions, as well as me giving my personal insight for what I would also say are the answers to these same questions. With that, you know how it is, we'll get straight into it. If I don't need to borrow, should I still get a credit card? It really isn't about the credit card, but really your credit score. Even if you don't need to borrow today, you may need to borrow in the future, not necessarily through a credit card, but maybe for an auto loan or a mortgage or anything that requires your credit to be run. You can have $10 million in the bank, but if there's a business opportunity that requires $100 million worth of capital, you may need to borrow and they may ask you for your credit score. So really simply put, if you don't need to borrow, that's cool, but eventually you may need it. And if you, let's say, never have a credit card or any type of credit, and AKA not having a credit score, the really only way that I personally know of proving yourself is essentially having a savings account or some type of account where you have income coming in there, and then maybe a portion of that being saved on such a consistent basis that when someone reviews your statements and documents, they can actually say that, hey, this individual may have some type of credit-worthy behavior or similar. There may be other answers or otherwise online, but this is what I personally know about. And so with that, we'll move on to our next question. How do I choose a credit card? There's a lot of factors of choosing what credit card is right for you and your lifestyle, and kind of what's at hand and what's the logic that goes into this decision. If you've seen a lot of videos of how I travel first class for free, or how I got $1,000 plus in value with credit cards, essentially maybe that's more on the travel or reward side of everything. So that could be one facet to go into your kind of decision making. On the other hand, you maybe already have some debt and you're looking at a credit card as, I've only known credit cards to be these kind of multipliers on spend, or maybe cards that have no type of rewards. But there are actually other cards that actually give you 0% in terms of an introductory offer on maybe balance transfers, or maybe may charge you a standard 3% fee for you to balance transfer from one card to the next. All of this is to say, when it comes to credit cards, there's definitely one spectrum where you're actually getting rewards, points, miles, and that side. And the other side could be maybe some credit builder type cards or secured credit cards, which are essentially you not having a credit profile in general, but you giving cash upfront to the actual lender so they can extend you a credit line based on that certain amount. If you're watching this video, my assumption is you're more in the beginning phases of everything credit cards. So without coming off too preachy, simply put, there's cards that are going to build your credit in the more beginning phases. Then in the middle, let's say you ran into some troubles with some debt, you actually have cards that can save you from a lot more interest, but also you want to be careful of not going into more debt or just making decisions that may not be helpful in a compounding negative nature in the future. And finally, you also got the travel, rewards, all the great things you always hear about, free first class flights, hotel nights, etc. And of course, there's some daily drivers, which give you maybe 3% plus on everyday spend, whether to have an annual fee or not. I hardly ever ask for subscribe, and I'll be making more credit related content in future videos is the plan. So subscribe and drop a like, you know how it is, but let's keep it going. How long does it take to get a credit card? In today's type of automated decision / algorithmic world, really you can get decisions in literally seconds. So you'll get approved, and depending on the system, you can have a virtual card number where you're able to spend immediately. And then from there, if there's a physical card, it just needs to be mailed to you. And depending on the issuer, you can actually give them a ring and say, hey, can you expedite this so I can get this card in the next 1 to 2 business days? And depending on the case, you definitely can. The other way to put it is, if it's not instant, then let's say maybe it takes 5 to 7 business days or 7 to 10 business days. But usually it's not going to take forever. So definitely it's going to be on the way eventually. And the only thing really to know is that the time lag between when you get approved, you may not even get to know instantly. So sometimes I've been in the situation where I've applied, totally forgot I even applied. And down the line, like literally a month after some lost mail or whatever, looks like, hey, I got a new credit card and there's X amount of credit limit and it's good to go as long as I activate it. So just some food for thought. How much can I borrow? When it comes to borrowing, you're assigned a credit limit usually when you get approved. And that's usually for purchases. So for example, actually swiping that card, tapping it, entering it online, basically purchasing something. Simply put, you can borrow essentially the limit that's assigned to you. At the same time, if you're trying to pull cash out of an ATM with your credit card, we'll cover that very shortly. Can I use my credit card abroad? Simply put, you can definitely use it abroad. Just check your terms and conditions. And ideally, you want to have no foreign transaction fees. And nowadays, things are pretty straightforward. But in case you got to give notice to your bank or issuer of saying, hey, I'm thinking of traveling, I just want to put a notice to not give me any fraud alerts in case I swipe my card abroad. It's really not a fraud transaction, it's me. You probably may want to do that. In my personal experience, I give them the notice, it still doesn't matter. Sometimes they try to text me, but let's say my texting doesn't work abroad, my card doesn't go through. So having multiple cards for this reason and no annual fees, no foreign transaction fees, you're still good to go, but you still have these capabilities abroad when you're trying to spend with your credit card. Can I increase my credit limit? You most certainly can. And there's a couple of ways. The lender may just give you more credit because of your good behavior and on-time payments and all that good stuff. And at the same time, you can actually request your lender to just give you more credit. My suggestion is make sure that if it is a hard pull, make sure it makes sense for you. Because if you're getting a hard pull for asking for more credit limit or credit line, you may be just better off hitting a sign-up bonus with some other card and getting a new card altogether because you're running your credit regardless. If it's a soft pull, you might as well ask. They give you more credit limit, and that's great. And at the same time, if you have just too much credit extended from one lender, then let's say you want another card down the line with that same bank, you may not get approved. This is because based on your income, they're extending you X amount of credit, and they may say, hey, we've extended too much credit to you, so we're not really privy to approving you at this time. If this happens, what you may want to do is just hit them up and say, hey, I want this card and I have this much credit limit with you guys. Can you just move over some of my credit limit from my existing cards onto this new card so you can basically force approve this application? Will I be charged if I withdraw cash on my credit card? Coming back to this question, essentially there's two types of limits. You got your purchase limit, where you're buying, tapping, whatever you're purchasing essentially. And on the other end, you may have a cash advance limit. When you withdraw cash from your credit line, it's 99% of the time gonna be charging you something known as a cash advance fee, and also coming from your limit that they allotted to you per your cash advance limit. For example, let's say you have $1,000 in terms of your purchase limit. Chances are your cash advance limit may be closer to $100, just an estimation or assumption. And just to be more careful, let's say you're trying to Venmo someone or send someone peer-to-peer transfers through your credit card to them, apart from maybe some fixed fee that that platform may charge. In usual cases at the time of this recording, Venmo charges 3%. What happens is, the back end is, hey, this person's sending cash on these type of apps, so you get charged a cash advance fee. Just in case, you may want to call your bank and say, hey, can you decrease my cash advance limit as low as it can go, just to kind of protect yourself from this situation if you never even intend to pull cash from your credit card. Every issuer is different. I've never really seen it go down to $0 in terms of that limit, but I've definitely seen it go down as low as $100. Just depends on the bank. Can I pay off my credit card debt / balances early? You most certainly can. Back in the day, I used to literally swipe my credit card just to get the points that they were giving, and then immediately from my checking, just pay off that card in advance. In the end, at the end of the month, your statement closes and what's reported to the bureaus is basically a $0 balance, as if you never even used the card. You could do $1 million in transaction, but because you paid it off in full before that statement close date, nothing's reported to the bureaus in terms of you really using that credit or credit card. There's a huge debate of whether you should even leave a balance or maybe leave, let's say, $1 or $2 to show your activity. But at the end of the day, the point is, / principle is, why pay interest when you don't have to? As long as your credit score / credit history kind of keeps going up, that's all that really matters. Net, you can pay it off early, and there's no reason you should be paying anything in interest if you don't want to, and you definitely don't have to, and it's just there extended to you in terms of credit, your credit limit. You can use it exactly how you want, pay it off early, pay into your credit, which means paying more than you even spent, which is artificially increasing your credit limit. So for example, if you have a $1,000 credit limit and you pay an extra $2,000 in advance, you'll have a negative $2,000 balance, which is essentially forcing a $3,000 limit. So even if they didn't give that to you in the beginning, you can kind of do this. If you don't want to run your credit again or ask for a credit limit increase, there's a way to still purchase things even if the limit up front doesn't look like it. Yet of course you need the cash up front. If there's a will, there's a way. I just got approved. Can I change my decision and just go back in time and just cancel this card even if I got approved and just act like it never happened? ? In America, what I found out is essentially there is no cooling period of sorts. If your credit is hit, it's on your report, it is what it is, and you'll be extended if you approve that credit line and limit with X amount of dollars of credit limit. So if you don't use it, you don't. But usually 6 months to 2 years of no activity, they're probably going to cancel your card. So you might as well put microtransactions to just keep your credit intact. Or if you take that short-term hit, it is what it is. What are you going to do? If you're a thin profile, it's going to hurt you more. If you're already fast forward, really involved with everything credit, then it shouldn't really matter. You can just kind of let it go and act like, yeah, it is what it is. What are you going to do? How do I cancel a credit card? It's really not that hard. Just call them up, tell them exactly what you want to do. It's ideal if you have a $0 balance. If you don't have a $0 balance and you want to cancel it, they may say no, / there could be other alternative answers. But overall, yeah, it could hurt your credit score. So really just do your research of how that could impact you. So if you're more of a beginner, that will impact you more. And And if otherwise, it may not have as much of an impact, but it's not hard. It's more of a choice to do and understand the ramifications before you get into it. Let's say you want to cancel because you're thinking of getting some new card and you're like, hey, I don't actually want to keep this current card. Really, in terms of a logical decision making, if it were me, what I would do is get approved first for that new card and then think about what I'm going to do with this current card. Because if you do something with the current card, in terms of, let's say, canceling it, that may affect your chances for getting approved for the new card in the first place. None of these questions matter if your credit score is in the sewers. What that means is, and that's not a real expression, I'm aware, check out one of these videos where you can boost your credit score fast towards that perfect credit score. And on the other end, avoid 5 mistakes that could potentially demolish your credit score. So with that, I'm just having fun with this outro. Thanks for coming to the end. Peace, y'all.